Welcome to Taxbytes for Expats, the top tax tips you want to know as an expat. The podcast is here to help answer the common queries and concerns expats have when moving to or from Ireland. Complex taxes explained simply. We'll focus on the Irish and international tax issues to be aware of to ensure you save time, money, and stress.
Avoid the hassle of dealing with your bank and transfer online, by app or over the phone or Currencies Direct today. Keep listening for an exclusive offer for Taxbytes for Expats listeners, and thanks to Currencies Direct for their support of this podcast. Maybe just so that we can kind of give pros and cons, talk me through, some of the things you missed about the UK when you're in Ireland. You've alluded to the traffic. What was buying the house like? Getting back into the banking system.
Well, the banking system in Ireland is I found it very draconian in terms of.
Okay.
Now I did, and because I still have an Irish bank account, even though I was in England. Because I never let my Irish bank account go, which is great. It has an English address, so they knew that I'm in England, but it's an Irish euros account. So, I think also part of the problem, and my sister's in banking, she's an accountant, and it was so free and easy years ago in Ireland. And then, of course, everybody was just, as they might do, well, we'll put a fast one here and we'll do that. And so, of course, they clamped down so hard on either opening accounts, whatever. Now, don't get me wrong; they've done that here, but it's much easier to navigate. You also have access to more in the UK than you do in Ireland. From the point of view of my banking and buying a property, I was because I had an account, I did not have to. But I know other people who are looking to either come back or buy. They don't have accounts in Ireland, because they cut it, not realizing that now it's a very difficult thing to, you don't just go in and say, I just want to open up an account. You've got to have A, B, C, D, you've got to have the whole alphabet. So I'm sort of luckier from that point of view. I also, in terms of buying the property, the solicitors were amazing, but we were known, the family were known to the solicitor group that we used. And the lady that we got was just, fantastic. And it was and she made sure everything was done correctly. Real stickler for, so it was very smooth. It was very, very smooth. Good. In terms of of either getting the money, even getting the money from the UK, because I was obviously using my money from the UK to buy the house, because I had a property here. So I had the money, but I needed to get that money across. So there, apart from the timing, trying to make sure it all was timed, for, the actual completion date and everything else, I didn't have an issue with that. But I do know whether you're buying in Ireland or buying in the UK or perhaps buying in other countries, there's always, things can go wrong, or you can end up with estate agents that aren't good, or banking or solicitors that just taking their time, or give you bad.
Exactly.
So, and I know, because part of what I had to do as an educationalist was to manage a whole load of properties when my partner died, in order to sell them off. So I had a huge insight into how that world works, in terms of working with the estate agents, in terms of the solicitors, in terms of getting the money across, and the banking and all the rest. I had quite a lot of experience, but I think I was also extremely lucky that I had people on the inside, if you like, who worked for me and guided me very well. And I think that's really key. If people are coming back, that they do have the right people in place who can advise them correctly, and can guide them through the process. I mean, it is slightly different. The buying and selling is different, but it's the key thing is to have those good people that are going to do it for you.
Yeah. And I think identify them early in the process if you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And looking at, about, how that money is transferred across, what that might mean, because especially if you're coming from the UK, which, as we know, is no longer in the EU. So there's that added thing that you just need to be aware. You need to know, how does this transfer across? And in fairness, mine, equally, I knew people that the bank that I was using here, we had the relationships with. So it wasn't a big high street bank, but we had the relationships with it, so they were working also for me. And I think that's the key, is making sure you've got those relationships, that they know they know what you're doing. You're sending it all, across. Yeah, that'll be my advice, certainly,
On
moving.
the topic of advice, and not to put you on the spot, but would you have 2 to 3 kind of learnings or piece of things you wish you knew before you made the move, that if someone's listening to this, that might resonate with them? Maybe that's one, but do you have anything else?
Well, I think in the move itself, because I moved all my stuff across, is really important in terms of getting people who really know what they're doing. And I thought I had people who knew what they were doing. In terms of moving, the removal firms,
Okay.
which is expensive. It is really expensive. And my experience, sadly, wasn't good. And
What went wrong, Michelle?
I dealing with the company, they were lovely, and they do international, but make sure it's international people you use.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do not go for somebody that you've, just, think, oh, they might be able to do it. They need to know, they need to know all about the tick boxes, all the things that you need now, because UK is not in the EU. That's the bottom line. Yeah, you just need to do your homework well on that one. And in fairness, my experience was not good, and it was very good on the Irish side, believe it or not, because they used they didn't, the people I used didn't bring it to me.
Okay. Two separate.
But there are companies that use the same all the way through. But in fairness, it was nothing to do with the guys who we used in Ireland. It was to do with what happened in the UK and the packing in the UK, even though I was there. But so a lot of stuff was damaged. And
Oh no.
yeah, and I was told by a friend eventually, what I got back, because obviously the insurance as well is to make sure you have insurance of insuring the stuff, which again is expensive. You can get your own, that's fine, it's not a problem. In the end, I just took theirs, but absolutely have insurance. Because I was claiming, my friend who was in insurance, who by the time I spoke to him, it was too late. It was all done and dusted. To actually, if there is damage, get a loss adjuster in to show exactly how much.
Okay. That's really good advice.
Because I had stuff that was worth, that I had bought a couple of years ago, but it was like £3,000. Well, they'd give me about 150 for the damage, but I said, but I can't replace that.
Replace that or fix it for £150.
Yeah. All my mirrors were damaged.
Oh,
one that could not be replaced. So but my friend said, he said, you should have asked me. He said, because he said it's worth having a loss adjuster to go in, so they then challenge the insurers to say, no, this is actually what it's worth, because you're expected to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And so if it is stuff that is, I think I only got something like 1,100 back out of, and it was something like, it cost me something like 7,500. It was huge money. It was huge money for insurance.
Wow. Okay. That's a really big learning.
Yeah, it is one of the key things. It was it went so badly. Yeah, that really upset me. And then, of course, even though I'd sold a lot of things in the UK, I was going into a cottage, and I probably need to measure
your
were too big.
furniture. Yeah.
I had to sell most of it when it did get there.
Oh, after bringing it. Okay.
Exactly.
So Be clear what you
Yeah.
need to bring, measure your furniture in the new place, or be realistic. We hear this often for people who come back from Australia or who move from the US to Ireland, where houses tend to be bigger and therefore furniture is bigger. And you bring your big modular sofa and it doesn't fit in your standard
Yep.
3-bedroom semi-detached house. It's all these little things. Did you import a car to Ireland, or is that something you might do in future?
That is something that you need to absolutely make sure you do properly. You can have a car from the UK for 12 months. Okay, you can keep it in, but it's only 12 months. And you must, if you're coming in, obviously by boat, you need to make sure you register it. And you need to do that within 3 months if you want to become a resident. So that is very, very key, so that you do not pay because
Vehicle registration tax.
yes,
Yeah.
because the cars coming in from the UK generally, if they're, really good cars, have a higher spec, most of them. And so in Ireland, those higher specs, the higher spec, they they add on. It's added on
Yeah.
to the
market
car
value is
itself.
determined by
Yeah.
revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, so they need to do that.
Yeah.
Oh.
You can get the exemption, of course, if you meet
Of
the
course you can.
conditions. Yeah. But it's a process that has to be followed.
Absolutely needs to be followed. And then, which I didn't know, is that you should really keep, while you're waiting, you should keep if the police were to stop you, you do need to keep the information with you, on you, to show, no, I've just come in, or, and don't get me wrong, that, they're not going to do a lot of that, but it does happen apparently. And they will take the car.
Yeah, they can impound it.
If you can't, yes, they can impound the car. So that's really important.
Mm.
And there's lots of information available from the tax, as to how you do this and what's there. There is a lot of information there, but you definitely need to keep your ticket, register that you've come in, and that if you're going to be resident, then that's what you need to do.
And now a quick word on our episode sponsor, Currencies Direct. If you're looking for a fast, easy way to transfer money to or from Ireland without the hassle and cost of dealing with your bank, keep it simple with Currencies Direct. Whether you're buying property or require regular currency transfers, Currencies Direct can help you save money. As a special offer for our listeners, when you use the link in the show notes and quote Expat Taxes when registering with Currencies Direct, you'll receive a €50 one-for-all or Amazon voucher when you transfer €5,000 or more in your first 6 months with Currencies Direct. Registration is quick and easy, and you decide how you transfer 24/7 via their online money transfer service, over the phone with one of their friendly experts, or by using their handy mobile app. Check the show notes or head to currenciesdirect.com to register, and thanks to Currencies Direct for the support of this podcast. And that probably, because before the call, or before we started to record, we're obviously not going to talk about your tax position. That's not for public consumption. But just, I suppose when you mention tax, and I shift our focus now to like income and capital gains tax, what have your learnings been about the difference between the Irish and the UK system?
Well, because well, there is the double taxation, obviously double taxation system, which you do need to get your head around. And my advice was, thankfully, having read your article in the Irish Times, I thought, that's the lady I need to call.
Very kind.
I thought, I need some help here. I need to make sure that, and they must. I would say to them to do it before they even arrive, to make sure that they know what the tax situation could be, what they've got, how that's going to play out when you become a resident in Ireland, because it's really important. And it's really important to know what you can have and what will be open for capital gains, what will be open for the Irish to be able to, rightly tax you again. But there getting advice on the double taxation from the UK is important. Anybody in terms of pension, particularly because they'll have worked in Ireland, but because I've worked in Ireland and I've worked in the UK. So yes, I only worked, I think, in Ireland for about 6 years, and before I then went to the UK, and did my degree and then started working again. But there are, you just need to find out those, because you can get caught so badly without realizing, because you either didn't do your homework well enough. So my advice absolutely is to make sure you get tax advice about the taxation system, how it works between the UK and Ireland, how bringing, either money back, investing is another issue.
Yeah, it's a difficult area.
It's and they do not have the same investments or access to, which I've learned.
No, they don't. Don't have ISIS.
No, in Ireland, as in, although the government have just announced what they're going to do with the ISIS here, they just don't have the same level of investment.
Yeah, the landscape here is
Yes,
very different. And you're entirely right. I sometimes feel like a broken record, but I have people, it's what, the 27th of November that we're recording, and, we've got people contacting us saying, oh, we're moving to Ireland next year. And you think, oh, it's a bit late to be telling us that, it's a bit too far along. It's not ideal to leave tax to one of the last things. It's really should be one of the first things that you think about,
yeah, it is.
6 months, at least 6 months before you come, if possible.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so much, isn't it? There's so many different things to think about.
There are. I mean, I think, most people have said to me, it'll take you about 12 to 18 months to try and settle. And this is, friends who have either been away and come back to really, because equally, you can't just slot yourself back in, because everybody's been living their lives. They've all been living their lives in a way. And even though I am the great organizer, I'm sort of, I will make the contact. I have to remind them, I am back now. You can call me. But they forget, because they're not used to me being back. So you have to make that, you make that effort. And then you'll create your own, if you want to, join a gym, gyms, very expensive, but anyway, join a gym, tennis, whatever it is, whatever it is, because you will have to make your own lives, because all your own friends have their lives. And as much as you've always remained friends, you really do have to make the effort even more so. And it's not that they don't want to be with you; it's that they forget that you're here.
And and the thing is, as well, I came up in a podcast before. Someone made the point, you've been to a new country, you've started a new life. You could do this when you come back, but we tend to think that coming home means that you just get off the boat and people stand there waiting, going, we're so glad you're back. Now, I'm being facetious, but my point is, it doesn't pan out like that, because, if you've left, whether it's 8 years or 10 years or 30 years ago, life has gone on. And
yes,
there is that kind of feeling of having to, the foundation is there, but you must build on it.
Yeah, you have to reestablish yourself back in your own country. And as I said, I'm luckier, because I have always come back. I have always, every 2 to 3 months, I would come home. And so I have those connections, and they are very strong, but I still need to reestablish. And I also need to find, I'm sort of, very much at the end of my, my career. Now, I'm one of these people who likes to be busy, so I would need to find something else to do. And whether it's voluntary or not, it doesn't matter. I just, as long as you're with people and you're doing something 2 or 3 days a week that, gets you back into
society,
just life and society in a more normal sort of everyday way, rather than, okay, I'm home again for the weekend, let's all go out, so
it's routine versus the feeling of holidays, isn't it? Because when you come back, you've got an energy and a budget and time that nobody else has, and they kind of tend to they'll book a holiday to be with you, or they'll go out for a meal that they might not normally do. And
yes,
then it's the modernity of life. You can't operate. It's just that mindset, and just being ready for, to some extent, that sometimes the lull that you get when you kind of go, well, this is day-to-day life, and we have to kind of get through it. My overarching feeling listening to you, though, is that you're very happy with the move. It's been a really positive thing for you.
It has. No, I mean, the move has been positive after the various things that, and then my car broke down. I had to bring that back to the UK. That's the other thing. So it was only 2 years old.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No, so between the damage, between the car, and then obviously my added situation in terms of, as you know, I was like, oh my God, was I meant to come back? And it's not that I didn't want, it wasn't that it's great to be, back with family and everything else. But that's the other thing, actually, in terms of cars and in terms of not having access to, it's different again, and believe it or not, I was told I had a lovely Jag, which I absolutely loved. And my brother's in the industry. And he goes, and it's a beautiful car. And it had an electrical fault. Well, you just don't want to have an electrical fault. As well as that, because there's a shortage of mechanics, that meant that you'd have to wait 2 or 3 months to get a service. And you're like, well, actually, no, I can't do that. The car isn't. And so they told me, they said, I tell you what you do. They said, you take that car back to the UK and sell it. That's the best thing to do.
Oh my goodness.
So it's, we talk about the infrastructure and we talk about, not having access to a greater field of things. So that's the plus and the minus of being,
It's 10% of the population.
68 million.
Yeah. 6 million
versus
5. It's not apples with apples. It's just that shift. So there's the pros and the cons. You walk down the street, you go to your coffee shop, and everybody says hello on your way. But maybe you go home and you have to research, how do I get my car out of the country because there isn't a mechanic.
Exactly.
And it's just what matters more. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, and I think if people are aware, and I know it is different, and to also really consider that when you come from going back to a country that, yes, when I left, I think it had 3.5 million. It's now 5 million. It's a different place. It is a different place. And I actually feel that culturally, that all the various different mix of cultures that have come in is a good thing. I think there's a richness there because the Irish culture tends to be quite strong. So you're getting quite a richness. But what you've got to remember is we are still talking 5 million in the whole country, as against whether you're coming from the US, Australia, or the UK. And the UK of 68 million. It's 5.
You can't.
And there's 1.5 in Ireland, in Dublin. And it's
so small.
Yes. And along with that comes that just takes a bit longer to get access to this or get access to that, and I think that's paying also. That's the other thing, paying to see the doctor.
There's no NHS in Ireland. Well, they have a health service, HSE, but it's not. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Differences.
Yeah.
There's
so that is different.
And yet you compare that to somebody coming from the US and they can't wrap their head around that we do have. So it's often perspectives. It's like, what are you used to? And I think, coming back to Ireland, having been abroad as an Irish person, come back with an open mind.
Yes.
Because you're not going to feel disappointed if you do that.
No, and that's it. You have to have that open mind. You really do. It is, it's really important. And my heart's still in Ireland, and it's yes, with those things, but there are things that when I left, we had so little when back in 1986, we're talking, it's like we came from, like, there was so little we had access to, and going back to a place that has a hell of a lot more. It's moved on so much. It's, so you have to go, yeah, okay, it might not still have the same amount, but that's the difference. That's why you're going back. If you can't get on with it, then you just come back, but
yeah,
it's as simple as that.
If it doesn't work, nothing's final, is it? Even if it feels like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michele, it's so lovely to talk to you and hear your story. Thank you so much for coming on.
That's okay. It's a pleasure. My pleasure.
Really confident that people are going to listen to this. And I even learned listening things listening to you. And I speak to people all day, every day, listening to their stories as we kind of give them tax advice and guide them. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, sharing your insights, your story, and you're a pleasure to talk to. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon as we guide you with the tax side of things.
Oh, yes. Very important. No, it's lovely, Stephanie. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Taxbytes for Expats. Please do leave a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, remember to take professional tax advice specific to your personal circumstances before acting or refraining from action in connection with the matters dealt with in this series. The material in this podcast is intended to give general guidance only.